Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight on the eve of potential disclosure. My name is Dave Scott. We're glad to have you here as we prepare for Tom Whitmore. Uncle Tom is here. Uncle Tommy Whitmore, little Tommy Whitmore, whatever you want to call him. He's one of my good friends, and we are going to be talking about UFOs as well as MJ12. But first, we have to say hello to each and every one of you, including T-Bone in the gold medal position. Eternity Eternal with a silver. Kitty Caddywhack taking home the bronze medal tonight. By the way, after the show, I will be on with Walter M. Sterling on WABC, and I have decided I am getting up in the morning early. We're going to do a live show probably at 5:30 in the morning our time, Pacific time, 8:30 Eastern, where we are going to be discussing the UFO files. So if you want to get up early with me, you can. Let's go through roll call. We have Mel WD-40 lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth when it's about government conspiracy. Road Flare, how are you? And Race Fan, what's going on? Nicole Sackage is here. Nicole will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Kitty, thank you so much for kicking off the super chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much. Shane Gord, how you doing? Mama Catherine, mwah, I love you, my dear. I hope you have a great day, great night, and a great sleep after this show. I really do. I love you. All right, moving on. We have Michael Morris, the attorney at large, Thunderhead, Frankie B, Necessary Dialogue, and Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. Nice to have you all here. Hi there, Kathy Evans. How are you tonight? Scrub-a-dub-dub, where have you been hiding? Holy cow, we're glad to have you back. And because of that, Scrub-a-dub-dub will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Mima Flowers, how are you tonight? Thank you for joining us as we continue on with our roll call. Just another guy named Harry. Walter Kotchabinsky, how are you? And who is next on our list? It's Paula Faust, everybody. The Paula Faust. There she is. Scrolling on down. Luscious Jules, nice to see you. Thomas Rock, thanks for coming on in. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Dutch Hank, good morning to you as we continue on with our roll call. Carrie Fast, welcome to SOR Chat. And who else is here? Flubber Lane, Integrationing. Nice to have you both here. We scroll on down, and Aussie, thanks for coming on in. And who is next? Algaray over on Twitch. So excited about Tom Whitmore being on the show. 1,200 Majestic pull-ups in 12 minutes and 12 seconds with 12 drink breaks as well. Good job. Way to go. Edwin Guerra, how are you? Cody Eiler, nice to see you. And Divine Diamond, thank you for coming on in. Reaper on X, welcome to SOR Chat. Do I think they will release the files? We're going to find out, and you'll be with me at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, somewhere around then, and we will get to it. Mr. Catfish, how are you? Swampy, what's going on, buddy? How you doing, brother? Hope you're well. And T-Bone, my man, how are you tonight? Thank you for coming on in, my friend. I appreciate you. And thank you so much for that super chat, T-Bone. You're the best. You really are the best. All right, let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to talk MJ12 and UFOs. Tom Whitmore is going to be here momentarily to go through it all with us. We are at roll call on our YouTube side right now as we say hello to Tim Mothman and his goatee, two separate entities. And who is next on our list? Hi, Claudette. How are you? Undead Jed. Nice to see you. And all of you better get up with me early in the morning. I'm telling you. Paramarv, how are you? Thank you for coming on in. Tina Smith, Alien Critter, how are you? Thunderhead, thank you for that amazing super chat. We greatly appreciate your love and support, buddy. Thank you very, very much. And do we have time? Scrolling on down. Nope. Throw those horns up, everybody. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears to what's that we have in the news. We're together. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Caribou Con. Get your tickets at cariboucon.com in the heart of British Columbia. September 18th through 20th, we want to see you up here for a great festival of the weird and strange. We're talking UFOs. We're talking Majestic 12 tonight. Researcher, author Tom Whitmore will be with us momentarily to discuss all of this. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off with another creepy story. Terry Hall will be filling in for a vacation in Grant Baker on the UFO report in hour 3 as well. All right, one of my favorite people in this field is back with us tonight. Tom Whitmore is a gem of a person. He has been actively involved in the UFO field since 1990, bringing decades of research and insight into one of the most enduring mysteries of our time. He's a retired financial analyst. He now focuses his expertise on strategic thinking, long-term trends, and deeper implications on unidentified aerial phenomena, and his passion project, the MJ12 documents. Tom is currently collecting, researching on a daily basis, even traveling to Washington, D.C. at times to try and get paperwork and hidden gems to put this elusive Majestic 12 theory into focus for the public. We're going to get to Tom here right now. Tom Whitmore, thank you for coming back on Spaced Out Radio. How are you?
Thank you, Dave. And it's so auspicious that you invited me on the program, because this week we seem to be on the verge of a drop of some UFO files.
I know. It's Tom, when you were part of MUFON, did you ever see a moment like this coming?
No. And I listened to other people talking. Now, we UFO people are so jaded about this whole subject of disclosure that I think a lot of people overlook the fact of how far we've really come. because when I got involved in this way back in the 90s, I felt, I woke up in the middle of the night one night and I thought, the government's got to disclose this. And I think the government is on the verge of, disclosing, world shattering information. But at that time, we didn't have a hope and a prayer of any real disclosure. And since 2017, we've had some really good people promoting the disclosure movement. And it's gotten to the point now, I think, where we've gotten lucky that we have a president that's willing to do it. I don't know if anybody else in politics that would be in the presidency would be willing to do this. So I think we need to look on the bright side and on the positive side. I don't see any point in predicting what's going to be in the files or what's not going to be in the files. But the very fact that they're starting to release files, to me, is a wonderful thing.
The releasing of the files, does that mean disclosure is here? Or does that mean that they are confirming that they have some secrets? Because it's already been put out there by the president that there are going to be things they cannot release due to national security. I'm going to assume that is going to be alien bodies. I'm going to assume that's going to be crash retrievals, where these incidents occurred, how many they have, you name it. But I think we're going to see a real definition coming up, Tom, between UFOs and unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yeah, and until we see what is in the files that they're willing to release, I don't think I can say whether it will be a true confirmation or not. But let's hope that there's enough information in the files that you really can't deny that they're confirming something. And I'm not willing to predict what they're willing to release and not release. Maybe after several months of this, drip, 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 something comes through that really is world, it's really earth shattering. And maybe that's the way that they want to get it done. So I'm not going to say they won't ever expose any bodies or any craft or any of that. I hope that they do, because that is the kind of confirmation and evidence and proof that we need.
What would you expect in Tom Whitmore's world, looking at these files? Okay, even though we don't know what's coming out just yet, but in the files, what do you think will be released?
Well, at this stage, now, if I was on their side of the issue, in the Defense Department and the intelligence agencies, it seems logical that they could release telexes, emails, electronic communications, certain reports, maybe with some information redacted, reports on maybe sightings by military pilots, reports on electronic communications and electronic sensors that they feel that they can let out without disclosing sources and methods. And that's always the excuse that they use to keep from disclosing anything, is they don't want to expose sources and methods. So we just have to wait and see. And, we could be getting documents where a lot of it is redacted, or maybe we'll get some information that's pretty good.
All I'm saying is I'm glad that yesterday I bought shares in Sharpie, because the amount of black ink that is going to be on these pieces of paperwork are probably going to be as, blacked out as the JFK files were when they were going to release that. Do you see any similarity between this and what President Trump did in the last year and a half with the JFK files?
Yeah, I mean, you can make a rough analogy of the two. And you have to wonder, when the Congress passed a law way back, insisting that the JFK files be released, by a certain date, and then they weren't. And they were the CIA and other agencies were holding back information. And I think since Trump in office, most all of it has been released. There may be a few that are left, but you wonder, well, why, why were they holding it back? Do they have something to hide? And if the truth is out there the way that we think that it is, it's hard to imagine that that would ever be released to the public, because it would just be too unsettling. But I keep my fingers crossed. I keep hoping for that. But I think it's probably, in terms of public relations, it's a good idea to start small and build up. I hope that is the approach that they take, that they will build and add layers of more and more interesting information as time goes by.
We're with Tom Whitmore here, independent researcher, formerly of the MUFON Board of Governors, or Board of Directors, I should say. Thank you for being here. And, with the files that are about to come out, Tom, what should we not expect to be in there?
Well, at this point, I wouldn't expect anything that is upsetting in terms of proof that, for example, abductions are occurring or that have occurred. Or I wouldn't think that they would release photos of ugly aliens that look threatening and menacing. It would be wonderful to see some photos of some actual craft and some hangars, but we're probably not going to get that yet. I think it would be fantastic if they could confirm Roswell, and so that we can put that to bed and we don't have to run around trying to prove that, assuming that it's true.
I don't think we're going to get Roswell. I do believe that we will get a bunch of emails, a bunch of notes, a lot of redacted names we're going to get. And I think we're going to get a lot of really, really interesting notes on this. But I do not see this being something that is going to be, how can I put it? It's going to be vanilla. We're going to get something. We're going to get some sweets. We're going to get some treats. But for the most part, it's going to be vanilla.
Well, and a lot of the old style UFO people like me have that kind of an expectation. But I'd prefer to not have any expectations and keep an open mind and hope that we'll be pleasantly surprised.
I hope so too, Tom. How do you feel about this, though? I mean, I'm going to be honest. I have been very negative over time with a lot of the members in the state of ufology and UApology in the last number of years. Just the way people have been treating it, from the scientists to the so-called researchers, the people who've named themselves journalists when they've never been a journalist in this field. We've gone down some bumpy roads. But I want to pat the UFO community on the back here for a minute, because if it wasn't for the cult following of this subject on X as a platform and the pressure that they put on people like Anna Paulina Luna, like Eric Burleson, Tim Burchett, even Marco Rubio, Kirsten Gillibrand, and many others, even President Trump. Okay, the pressure that they put on them on a daily basis, calling their offices, sending emails, tweeting out to them. These people are a small but dedicated few who have been doing this, Tom. And, it's hard to know the names under the characters they play under X. But realistically, I think the public has had a large part in doing this, specifically the UFO public. Your thoughts?
I think you're right, Dave. And I haven't really thought about that part of it so much because I mostly notice people like, Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon, Jim Semivan, David Grush, people like that have been public and have been high profile. But when you think about it, we do have some people in our corner. I think Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, is basically on board. And like you mentioned, we have Anna Paulina Luna and Burchett and Burleson. One person I haven't heard from lately, and I don't know if you have, Dave, but I haven't heard anything from Senator Gillibrand. And when you look at, Burchett, Luna, Burleson, and these folks, they're very much negative on Arrow. And they're actually putting forth legislation to disband Arrow. And Gillibrand is the person that really helped create Arrow. She's been behind it. I'm very curious to know what she thinks of all this.
Yeah, I'm very curious about it as well. I mean, Marco Rubio was a champion of this subject up until he became the Secretary of State. Right before he was going to be nominated for Secretary of State, he seemed to go silent on this subject. So, I mean, there is a lot of posturing that goes along with that, because I think there was probably some stigma to that he didn't want the UFO subject tied to his run for Secretary of State, but he's still in quite support. I mean, he does appear in the Disclosure Day documentary about it. Maybe he's gone more behind the scenes. And, I think a lot more politicians are now waking up to the fact that there is something here, and there is something that has value and implications towards not only the United States, but the world as well, Tom.
And given the current world situation, Marco Rubio has other fish to fry right now. So it doesn't surprise me that he hasn't been vocal on the UFO UAP subject. But again, I'm curious to know what Senator Gillibrand's attitude is.
Longtime researcher and a friend of yours and mine, Stephen Bassett, from the Paradigm Research Group, a number of years ago, I remember him saying on this show, and he has been lobbying as the only UFO lobbyist for decades in Washington, D.C. And I remember him saying on this show, if we had just one person come out, one person from the Pentagon to come out to say that this subject is real, this whole thing would blow wide open. Now, it didn't do that when Lou Elizondo came out, but it did take years in order to try and get this subject advanced further than it's ever been before in its life. But do you feel good for a lot of the old school, the OG ufologists out there like Stephen Bassett or Danny Sheehan or Grant Cameron, Richard Dolan, just to name a few?
Yeah, well, I'm not putting myself on the same level as Dolan or even Grant Cameron, but we were going nowhere before 2017. And there was a common belief with a lot of the UFO folks before 2017 that the New York Times had a blackout, and the other major media like the New York Times and the Washington Post and those types had a true blackout about the whole UFO subject. And that came to an end, and it was a real sea change when that article came out in the New York Times in 2017. And I think historically, maybe 20, 30 years from now, looking back on this, we'll see that was the true watershed. That if we do get to some level of true disclosure, that it started in 2017 with that New York Times article. And I think before that, all we could do is hope and feel sorry for ourselves. But now, like I'm saying, I think we should be positive and look how far everything has come. And now we're on the verge of UFO files being released.
Do you want disclosure?
Yes.
Why?
Yes, I want to know everything. And as far as I'm concerned, for anyone that is a true UFO person wants to know it all. And I'll take my lumps. It may not be what we want to hear, but we need to hear it.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for it because I haven't, how can I put this? I haven't enjoyed watching the last few years the way this subject has been controlled, the way this subject has been manipulated, not only for experiencers, because I do come at it from an experiencer point of view. And it's made me very uncomfortable, not trying to sound like a Karen here or anything, but it's made me very uncomfortable to see how this subject has been manipulated in social media, has gone from the scientific side of everything where it's all nuts and bolts to, watching certain media people shut out other media people for the sake of the story. I've seen it all happen here. I've seen experiencers get exploited. I've seen everything. And I don't know if that's healthy for the community moving forward. What do you think?
Well, social media is not necessarily a friendly world. And there are too many people getting negative on social media, just people that are ordinary citizens, engaging in the discussion. There's too much negativity. One pattern I have noticed, though, is that certain people will get on social media, they'll get into controversy, and things get negative, and then the person will start complaining of being harassed, and then make an announcement that I'm going off Twitter, I'm going off social media, this is it, I'm done. And if they had simply stayed positive and stayed out of, all of this negative, all these negative vibes, they never would have been in a position where they're being harassed or they feel like they're being attacked and they have to get off social media. And they usually come back.
Isn't that what marijuana is for? Situations like that. I mean, we're allowed to talk openly about that around here, are we not? But no, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's, even though I said, I don't like the feeling of ufology, it's not about feelings in the end. I'm totally going to contradict myself right now. In the end, it's not about my feelings. It's not about anybody's feelings. I just know personally, I don't like where this disclosure movement is going because there are people out there, Tom, as we got about 90 seconds to go, who don't care about what kind of disclosure we get as long as we get it. Okay. And it could be redacted to 3 words on every page for 180 pages. Okay. It could be something that, they're not going to give us the full videos. They're not going to give us anything good. They're not going to tell us where the site is, but they say, hey, there's strange things out there. We don't know what they are. I think that's really where we have to, worry about what kind of disclosure are we actually going to get.
Well, you may notice, Dave, when the U.S. has been involved in these forever wars like Iraq and all these things, when we get into the UFO videos, they'll say, well, we can't show that because we don't want to expose sources and methods. But then if we're in a war and they drop a bomb or shoot a missile at a target and it blows it up, all of a sudden they have this wonderful video that shows how great American technology is. So, it's a little bit of hypocrisy going on there. And the reason why they do that is so that they can convince the public that the military is effective and that our tax dollars are well spent. I don't know how that could apply with UFOs.
Tom, hold right there because we are going to come back here at the bottom of the hour. Tom Whitmore is here on the verge of disclosure. Are we there? Is it time? Did anyone expect anyone not named Hillary Clinton to be the disclosure president? Is this going to be Donald Trump's newest title? We're going to find out next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, Tom, we're clear.
Okay. You changed your introductory music presentation.
No, it's the same.
No, I just couldn't hear it, I guess.
Tis the same. Oh my God, ChatGPT is driving me nuts right now. All right.
I'm on Google. I use Gemini all the time. I use Notebook LM. It's really helpful.
I keep asking for a 1200 by 720 thumbnail, and it keeps printing a 1792 by 1024. And YouTube doesn't accept that.
Have you tried Grok?
I'm refusing Grok right now. I'm anti-Grok right now because they've gone to a paywall now for everything. And I don't need to be paying for 3 or 4 different AI programs at once here. And I understand why it costs money to make things. All right. Hi, maker of stuff. How you doing? But I wasn't happy with that.
I think we all already have too many subscriptions.
Oh, I'm so sick of subscriptions, Tom. You know what else I'm sick of is those codes that you have to send to your phone now for everything.
Yeah.
Those confirmation codes.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy who invented that, who absolutely convinced all of these companies to fearmonger. Okay, because he or she is going to be living a great lifestyle for the next 100 plus years.
Well, I just hope it keeps us out of trouble. It keeps us from getting hacked. And people that like cash managers at businesses that deal with banks, they have these little thumb drive shaped things that when they would do a transfer or something, they would click it and it would give them a random number, and they would put that into the transfer request. And it's basically a random number generator. It's just a layer of security, but it is annoying. And when I go into something and I have to sign in again and go through all that, I mean, it's really it's tiresome. But with AI and everything, they're starting to talk about how we won't have phones anymore, and I don't know how that's going to work.
All I know is in Canada, you can no longer buy a car without sending the bank your photo ID on your phone. It's like you go through the process, you sit with your salesperson, your sales manager, your finance manager. They've all confirmed you are who you say you are. Plus your ID matches up, plus everything. And now the bank says that's not good enough because of anti-money laundering laws.
Uh-huh.
And fraud laws. That's the famous catchphrase up here right now, is fraud and anti-money laundering.
Uh-huh. And, Canada is a different country than the U.S., and we have a certain amount of that, but I think you all have even more regulation than we have.
Sometimes too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes too much.
Well, and in Britain, you can go to jail for a tweet or a Facebook posting.
We're getting there up here. We're getting here up here that our prime minister is wanting to control or try and get rid of X in Canada because people are mean to him on there.
Yeah.
All right. Oh crap! I forgot to put a time. 5:30 a.m. tomorrow morning Pacific time. We're going live tomorrow morning.
All right.
Yay me. Yay me.
Good for you.
All right, here we go, Tom.
Thank you, sir.
Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in as we bring you Tom Whitmore, UFOs, disclosure, the disclosure president, and eventually we will get to his passion, the MJ12 documents. Tom Whitmore will be here momentarily, but first we want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Tom Whitmore, nice to have you here.
Thank you, Dave. Glad to be here.
Back in 2015, all the bigwigs from John Podesta, Tom DeLonge of Blink-182, Stephen Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group, Danny Sheehan, they were all convinced that Hillary Clinton was going to win the presidency and disclosure was going to be at hand. She would have been the disclosure president, but not so fast. President Trump wins that term, doesn't do anything with the UFO files, even though he interviewed some very handsome pilots. Best looking pilots he ever saw, who talked about seeing some strange things up in the sky. Obviously, Joe Biden really didn't talk UFOs during his presidency. And now here we are, Donald Trump on the verge of becoming the disclosure president. How weird is that?
Dave, I said a few minutes ago that I didn't think any other president would do this, but that reminds me that I think Hillary Clinton was considering it, at least. And she said publicly that she was willing to release what information she could that didn't harm national security. So maybe it would have turned into something. And I think we all know that John Podesta was very, very pro UFO, and he wanted to get to the bottom of it. So if Hillary had won the election, maybe we might be even further along by now. Who knows? Trump has teased the idea of a total disclosure executive order, and I don't know how much weight we can put behind that, but it certainly gives certain people hope and expectation.
But here's what a lot of people don't understand. Just because President Trump says release the files doesn't mean that the files get released. It means that that sets the files to be looked over, to figure out which ones can go public and which ones have to remain either classified, redacted, or continue to be above top secret, Tom.
Well, and it's not like all the files are in one office. You know, we have something like 16 different intelligence agencies, and each agency has some files. And then you have the Defense Department itself. There are bureaucracies and offices within the Defense Department, especially the one that are running these rumored black programs where they're back engineering craft and storing the bodies and all that. And then you have the military branches, and going back to the 1940s. Now, there were military regulations issued many, many years ago that separated military UFO activity from Project Blue Book. And I don't think any of us know where those files are, if they've been retained, have they been destroyed, have they been lost, or are they still available? But when you take all of these agencies, and I haven't even mentioned the Department of Energy and the nuclear program and all that, but it's a whole lot of agencies, and there's a tremendous potential for documentation out there. But I just maybe we're looking at it simplistically, and we're thinking that one office has files that they just have to go through them and decide what to release. And I don't think it's that simple.
I don't think it's a very simple process either. It's not just like, here you go. Because I do believe under the acronym UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena, that there is a great case that a lot of that technology is American made. And they have to be able to cover up their toys before they could go disclose the alien toys. I believe that's a huge part of this, Tom. What's your thoughts?
Well, they don't even have to be UFOs, so to speak. I mean, there are all kinds of technologies that are developed through DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, that we don't know about and may never know about. And this goes on. And certain of these even more conventional projects compared to UFOs that are conventional, are held in the utmost secrecy because it gives us a military advantage over our adversaries like Russia and China. So there's probably a lot of conventional technology that we don't know about. It may be used now or it may be under development. I'll tell you one agency that I think has undergone a terrific amount of technological development that we don't know about, and that's in the National Security Agency, because they have especially since World War II, they have just diligently improved their technological capabilities in communications in other areas. And I think there are all kinds of levels of technology in the National Security Agency that we don't know about and that we may never know about.
What do you think the biggest secret to this all is?
Well, for us old UFO people, the idea of crashed saucers and alien bodies and abductions and cattle mutilations, we can handle all that. But I'm a little bit surprised that the people that are publicly talking about this now, people like David Grush and others, are referring to UAPs. I don't really like that term. You're going to have an unidentified aerial phenomenon land in your backyard. I mean, you have a UFO land in your backyard, okay? But David Grush and others, they keep talking like these aliens are interdimensional. And I don't know how would they establish in the first place that they're interdimensional. But if they are, what could be the deepest, darkest reality of it? And I think what it could be is that they capture our consciousness after we die, and where we end up may not always be pleasant. And maybe that's the dark secret.
Well, I mean, if we can believe what a lot of people are saying online, and I know sometimes that is extremely tough, there have been apparently pastors who've been told to talk to their congregations about the fact that this is going to have some sort of, effect on religion. this conversation. You know, there's a report earlier today coming from the Bank of England that basically says that this could plan, if aliens are disclosed to be here, it could cause a financial crisis. I mean, there are dangers to this that I don't think a lot of people have read in about.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with the discussion, the chatter on Twitter and places about these ministers and even evangelical people meeting and trying to think this through, and they really irritate me. And the reason for that is that the Bible is a lens that they run everything through. And even many of those people, they believe that the earth or the world was created in 7 days and all that, and they believe that in Revelation it predicts that there is going to be a second coming and a tribulation and so on and so forth. So if you get into the UFO topic, if it comes into the public domain that it really is real, they're going to run their interpretation of that through their biblical lens. And I think that's a distortion. We have to look at the evidence and hopefully prove. Now, another undercurrent in the discussion has been that the government doesn't even know what it really is or where it comes from or what the agenda is or what they're trying to accomplish. So even if we did get some form of confirmation, how are we as just ordinary citizens going to be able to interpret it in such a way that we truly understand the origin and the nature of the phenomenon? We may not be able to.
Can we comprehend what side effects this may have, or is it impossible? Because I think that has been a big issue with the people behind the scenes regarding UFO disclosure is public reaction. And Tom, I remember talking to Lou Elizondo about this, where I asked him, during the pandemic, never mind whether you believe about the disease or not. Okay. I'm not getting into that argument at all. But I'm specifically asking, I asked Lou Elizondo about the people, the way we treated each other during that time. Whether it was hoarding milk, ripping food out of single moms' grocery carts because apparently there was a shortage of meat, a shortage of toilet paper, which there never was. Some reason this got blown out of proportion. There never was a shortage of food. There was never a shortage of anything. It was all there. It just had to get to the store. But people panicked. People were ratting out their neighbors for having one too many people over at Christmas time or for a birthday party, or sneaking mom and dad or grandpa and grandma into the house to meet the newborn baby. Okay, there was a lot of issues during that time, and I hate talking about that subject. But if we look at the way people treated people and keep it specifically focused on that, we failed. And imagine if they came out and said, aliens are real, aliens are here, they have been coming to this planet for a long time, they are abducting us, they are taking us away. Some people they are taking never to be seen again. If that came down on Disclosure Day, there would be panic. People would freak out. It'd be hard to continue because that's what we're good at doing. We're good at not being rational, Tom. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Now, COVID it's an object lesson, but it's also not exactly the same situation. And I remember when COVID hit, that for a day or two, they basically wanted everybody locked down. Nobody even left their house. And it seems to me the sector of society that suffered the most economically were the restaurants, because the restaurants weren't able to take customers during the height of the COVID period. And maybe there was a certain amount of panic, And there's a certain amount of people not believing the information that they were given. For example, people not believing that it wasn't some artificial strategy by the government, or that the so-called vaccines would work, and so on and so forth. And if some kind of firm evidence or even proof of aliens were made public, and I've said this before, but I think there's going to be a segment of the population that's just not going to believe it. They're going to think it's some kind of a government psyop, or government stratagem, or fake news, or something like that. And you were talking about, Dave, what could really do the most harm. I don't think if this exists, that they would disclose that, for example, the quote unquote aliens created Christianity, Jesus Christ, or Muhammad and Islam, or Moses and Judaism. If there was proof of that, I don't think they would let that out, because then I think it would really hit the fan. And the religious people, especially the evangelical Christian types, they would have a serious problem. And they'll probably run straight to their pastor and want answers. And the pastors aren't going to have any answers, because they don't know anything about this subject.
No, I fully get you on that. And it is a dangerous point. And like, getting back to my point, because I forgot to finish, Elizondo said to me that they were watching, they were disappointed with the way people were treating people. And it made them think, how are we going to break this to people if they can't handle, a situation like the pandemic? How are they going to handle alien disclosure? And you're right, they are different topics, but it's still human reaction that is consistent. Okay? Because we don't know what they're going to announce. We're only speculating. We're all waiting on pins and needles. The only thing we do know, Tom, is we know now it's coming. We know it's coming. We know it's right there. It's just a matter of where and when, and how much do we get. What do you think the safest play on this is? Is it just releasing files about, hey, a police station in North Carolina reported to the local military base that they saw some strange object flying near the base? Is that what we're going to get? Like, really vague type information?
Well, we've had 80 years of that kind of thing, of sightings, and good sightings, even landings. I just think that the evangelical Christians, and maybe I'll offend some people here, but particularly with the Baptist Church, if it's not their brand of Christianity, then it must be from Satan. And that's where I see a real problem developing in the sociological development of the discussion of this, as it unfolds. And that's a good segment of the population that just is not as far as I'm concerned, a sound mind to assimilate this information. And let me be a little more specific. If you quote the Bible, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and God created man." Okay. It doesn't say in the Bible that God only created man and that there's no other life in the universe. But some of these conservative types, that's how they think. They think that we're so special, that we're the only people that God created, and that Earth is special, and that is it. And they just aren't of a frame of mind to accept anything more broad. And you look up into the universe now with these telescopes that they have, the telescopes that are looking out in the universe, there are more galaxies than there are grains of sand, they say, than grains of sand on the beaches. So we'd have to be living in the most statistically weird universe imaginable for us to be the only planet in the universe that has intelligent life.
I 100% agree with you on that. I think that is a very intelligent answer there. And, you know, I had often said on this show the last few months, if they wanted to get out of this subject cleanly, the easiest way to do it without having to give up anything top secret is to say we found a signal. We found a signal in a different galaxy or a different solar system from a Goldilocks zone planet. And it does not sound like anything we have ever heard from outer space. And we've been monitoring it, say, for 2.5 years or 12 years or whatever it may be. And we can now confirm that we are not alone. We have found a different civilization. I really believe that's the safest way to do it. That way it takes all the pressure off. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and that would be one approach. Another approach could be that they've found evidence or proof of life on Mars. Now, I think they probably have seen that NASA and these, planetary scientists have probably seen indications of ancient life on Mars. The problem is, and I think the reason why they don't come forward with that is the other scientists would jump on it and subject it to extreme scrutiny. So they have to have the thing locked down so tight. The proof has to be so, just concrete, set in stone, that they don't want to go public with it. But that could be a logical approach, to indicate that there is ancient life on Mars. I mean, just even microbial would do it.
Well, didn't they just come out last week saying that they found microbial life on Mars?
They may have, because I don't survey everything, in the news every day. So maybe they did.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would make sense, but I don't think people are going to react very well to that, though.
I think there has been some preparation. For example, I've had indications, and I won't say who I've gotten it from, but that the FBI has a unit that has been going around and consulting with leaders in the UFO community and getting their input on things. Now, I don't know exactly what it is that they want to know or what they're going to do with the information. And these Christian minister types meeting, even though they're saying it wasn't a government directed meeting, but that's another indication that maybe some kind of preparation is going on. And this is something that a lot of UFO people don't seem to think about, is that if you're going to have a really major disclosure like this, the public needs to be prepared. And, the religious community needs to be prepared. The academic community needs to be prepared. The business community needs to be prepared, and so on and so forth. You can go down the line. And when people get on their high horse and say, we're on the verge of disclosure, and this kind of preparation hasn't been going on, or at least we haven't heard about it, if it's not going on, I can't help but wonder, I don't think that any major disclosure is going to occur.
What does this do to skeptics like Neil deGrasse Tyson or even Mick West or somebody along those lines?
If I were Neil deGrasse Tyson, I would say if evidence and proof comes out, I would say, look, I knew it all along. It's just I was asked to take this this line of, well, I won't say propaganda, but I was asked to take this line because I was asked not to keep up this line until the public was ready and the government was ready to engage in a disclosure. That's what I'd say if I were Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Well, you know what, Tom? We are going to get a little bit more into the disclosure movement. I promise you, we have not forgotten about MJ12, your baby, your research, and everything you love as your side project in life here. We will get to both in hour number 2. Researcher and author Tom Whitmore is here, a great mind of knowledge, of calm and critical thinking. Really what's needed right now in the UFO world. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Tom, we are clear. We got about 5 minutes. We're going to put a video on here, okay?
Okay.
Our merch is Bigfoot approved. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have hoodies, we have socks, we have hats, we have stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can buy Spaced Out Radio merch and look the part? Our merch ain't ugly, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Lurking within the forested region of the 108-mile ranch, where the worlds of the normal and paranormal collide. CaribouCon is waiting for you, bringing together a panel of renowned experts in the paranormal, cryptid research, and UFO phenomena fields. Get ready for a spine-tingling weekend in the heart of British Columbia. Enjoy fascinating discussions, presentations, tours of local haunted areas, and skywatching. Learn from investigators, authors, and enthusiasts who explore everything from ghost hunting techniques to sightings of Sasquatch and beyond. Whether you're a seasoned paranormal researcher or just love a good spooky story, this is your chance to connect with fellow enthusiasts in one of BC's most mysterious areas. Tickets are on sale now. Grab yours before they're gone. Visit cariboucon.com for details, tickets, and updates.
Are you ready to dive into the weird and wonderful world of cryptids, cartoons, and chaos? Meet Dirty Filth, Spaced Out Radio's resident cartoonist and master of the mysterious. Every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, join him live on the Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel for Cryptid Cartoons with Dirty Filth, a hilarious hour where he sketches bizarre beasts, shares mind-bending stories, and battles his mischievous cats. Whether you're a UFO enthusiast, paranormal fan, or just love quirky art, Dirty Filth filters the universe through his unique lens, creating cartoons that capture the strange, dark, and supernatural. Follow Dirty Filth on X at Filth1 or Facebook at Dear Filth for more filthy fun. Find his link in the description below.
Spaced Out Radio wants to hear from you. We love our community, and your voice truly matters. Drop a comment after every show and let us know what you thought. Agree with our guests? Tell us why. Disagree? We want to hear that too. We read every single comment. Jump into the live chat during the broadcast and be part of the conversation in real time. Got a killer topic idea? Your suggestions help shape the show. And if you want to take it even further, join our Patreon for bonus content and direct feedback opportunities with Dave and the team. This is your show as much as it is ours. Whether you're a longtime listener or brand new, we want your thoughts, your questions, and your ideas. And let's keep building this incredible community together. Spaced Out Radio, where the conversation never ends. What are you waiting for? We're listening.
with 5 explorable Gold Rush-era buildings said to be home to spirits of a time forgotten. The 108-mile heritage site in the heart of BC's Caribou region offers a unique opportunity for thrill seekers and history buffs. For an evening of historical fun, step into our guided ghost tours, where spine-chilling stories of Gold Rush legends and unexplained encounters come alive. For those craving even more, inquire with us about conducting a hands-on paranormal investigation of your own. And if you're truly brave, book our haunted sleepovers. Spend the night at our B&B inside the McNeil House to truly experience this historical landmark and its ghostly secrets firsthand. For booking or inquiries, go to haunted108.com.
All right, we are back, and Tom Whitmore is with us. I will be live at 5:30 Pacific in the morning, so 7.5 hours from now, talking about the UFO file, seeing what comes out, what doesn't. So if you want to join me, I will be here. Thank you tonight to our super chatters, Thunderhead, Paramarv, Dutch Hank, T-Bone, Pam, Kitty, and JSCO. It's a great way to support what we do on a nightly basis, so thank you very, very much for your love and support. If you haven't yet already, do us a favor, help us with the algorithms, give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. And here we go. We are into the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We have Tom Whitmore here, joining us to talk about UFOs and MJ12. Exciting times indeed in the UFO world. But first, we want to say hello to all of you in Radio Land and on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Xelophobia. Xelophobia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Tom Whitmore, UFO phenomena guy. He's an MJ12 guy and an all-round great guy. Why? Well, because he's here and he's a good friend of this show. Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks for asking me on. Glad to be here.
We're in historic times, Tom. What happens if they release Roswell? Roswell's the kingpin of all of this. What happens if they release it?
I would like to think that after the MJ12 documents came out in the 80s and the Roswell movie came out, I think, in the 1990s, and the X-Files and all of this, that I would like to think that the public is acclimated enough that if Roswell were disclosed, it wouldn't be too big of a shock. What do you think?
I think it opens up too many doors. I think they keep Roswell quiet because that would open up the door to the fact that we do have a UFO, that we do have alien bodies, and that opens up the doors to Roswell and every other crash retrieval that is out there, because too many people know about the crash retrievals, whether it's Kecksburg, whether it's Kingman, whether it's Cape Girardeau, whether it's Shag Harbor or anything along those lines. I mean, don't forget, we don't know when those craft left Shag Harbor, Canada's Roswell. I think that it really, really begs us to wonder if those craft were underwater, and there were two of them at one point, allegedly, one fixing the other, that there could have been debris down there that the divers saw or that radar picked up, and they may have debris from that as well. So we also need to figure out the difference between UFO and UAP. And, I realize that's a sensitive subject for many people, but what about the drones in New Jersey? What about the confirmation of what was shot down over Alaska and in Canadian airspace? What about, were they just Chinese balloons or what were they? We haven't had real confirmation on all of that except for the first balloon that was shot down. There is a lot of information that needs to come out about this. And if they start with Roswell, well, then you're opening up a Pandora's box.
You're right, Dave. And it could be a Pandora's box. And you can make a very strong argument that the authorities have nothing to gain by disclosing that information. But at the same time, Roswell has become a facet, almost a foundational element of popular culture and popular legend and folk belief. And we've had so many science fiction movies and all the things that I just mentioned that, I think honestly, you can argue that the over a very long period of time, really 40 years or more, that the public has been conditioned and acclimated to think of aliens and extraterrestrial life and captured UFOs and all that kind of thing. Now, some people argue that what will be disclosed they may do Roswell, but not much more. And at some point, the horse needs to leave the barn. The cat needs to be let out of the bag. And if it's not now, when? If we're not ready after really at least 40 years of acclimation, I don't know when we will ever be ready.
If the slow drip continues, they should provide enough paperwork that will give them a few years worth of figuring out what to do next, unless the aliens are already on their way. I remember asking Lou Elizondo, Sean Cahill, and many others, why now? What was the importance of bringing this subject out right now? Is it just because, well, we want UFO disclosure? That's a weak answer. Why now? There was no reason for any of this to come out, Tom. And curiosity does not rank high on the top secrets of the United States government. Curiosity from the public, that's what I'm talking about. They really haven't answered, anybody hasn't really answered that why now question. The way I look at it is it's a twofold question. Number one, it leads to a false flag event, which I highly doubt, even though there are people out there like Dr. Stephen Greer who believe that this could be a false flag event. Or number two, Tom, somebody has been contacted and that they know that there could be aliens on their way here in some sort of mothership that is going to make its way here and make its way known to the world and every citizen of this world. That used to sound far-fetched, but in today's day and age, it may not be, Tom. What do you think the why now is?
Well, there's been talk about 2027, and I don't have the opportunity to provide a lot of advice to people, but my advice to you all out there in radio land is I would not get wrapped all around that axle that something big is going to happen in 2027. And I remember back in the 1990s, we were hearing about this false flag event that was supposedly going to come about. And I wouldn't get wrapped around that axle either. I think we just need to keep calm and carry on and wait and see what kind of information we can get from the government and then deal with that. And I think that if we act like big boys and girls we can probably handle it. I don't think they're going to give us anything more than we can handle at any one time. Now, as for why now, I mean, there has been an undercurrent of factional strife in the Defense Department of elements within the Defense Department that want disclosure. And I think Elizondo and Mellon and company and people like that had finally gotten to the point that they were fed up with this cover-up attitude that the Pentagon has had, and they were going to take matters into their own hands. And parallel to that, you had John Podesta during the Obama administration that wanted to get to the bottom of UFOs, and he regretted that he wasn't able to. I don't know why. He was awfully high up there. So I think it was a natural progression and evolution of efforts, and maybe the faction in the Pentagon that wanted disclosure finally got to the point where they were ready to take some risks and go public. The problem is there's the other faction in the Defense Department that does not want disclosure, and they dig in their heels, and I can almost guarantee you behind the scenes they are fighting tooth and nail to not allow this disclosure to come about.
Who do you think's fighting it? Which departments do you think are fighting it?
Well, there's the complication that if this notion is true, that there are corporations, like Lockheed or Boeing or these types that have one or more craft that they've been back engineering and trying to figure out how they work. That's a big complication for DoD. And I can readily see why there would be authorities within the Defense Department that just don't want to get into that. They've done an outstanding job of hiding it and creating layers upon layers of security and documentation that hide these programs. And they, like you say, Dave, it's a Pandora's box. If that opens, then that all could fall out and shake out. And there are these really high-level people in DoD, maybe not the Secretary of Defense, but the undersecretaries and deputy secretaries that are high up enough that they want to protect their turf, and they just don't want it to happen.
What would be the reasoning for not disclosing, Tom? I mean, it sounds like such a basic question, but it is difficult nonetheless. I mean, is it about the technology? Is it about alien life and the biblical changes that would make? Is it about 0-point energy, which would affect, every country that produces oil, like Canada and the United States and the Middle East?
Well, I think people get ahead of the story because there's always been a lot of talk, and it's gotten even more intense over the years that if the government or these corporations are hiding this technology, that they're somehow depriving the world of revolutionary, life-saving, life-changing technology that could supplant petroleum and all this. And I think that's getting ahead of the story, because even let's say that Lockheed has a flying saucer in a hangar somewhere, and they have several scientists working on the materials and all this. It could be, the technology could be, and probably is, assuming that it's true, probably is so far ahead of ours that they can't figure out how it works. And Eric Davis has made that point. And so, assuming that they're somehow hiding something that could change technologically, supplant fossil fuels and all this, I think is just, we're getting ahead of our skis. And I like to draw an analogy that if we could somehow go back in time and drop off a car in ancient Rome, and you put the emperor in there, put Nero in there or whoever, he could probably drive it around for a while until it ran out of gas or until the tires went flat or the battery ran out of charge. But could they figure out how to build a car? They might get a couple of ideas, like maybe create some steering in their wagons or their chariots. But beyond that, could they build a car? They couldn't get anywhere near that. And we could be having the same problem. So just because we may have one or more saucers in one or more hangars doesn't necessarily mean that we're withholding technology that could change the world. And another problem is, even if they could figure out how the thing works, we may not be able to reproduce it. And we may not be able to reproduce it at scale. So I just think people should keep those things in mind.
What about giving people like Bob Lazar credence? Because I still believe there is this giant Pandora's box, Tom, inside the Pentagon that literally has every secret that we know. It has the names of people who have been abducted and taken. Maybe not all of them, but some of them for sure. I think it does go to whether or not Eisenhower traded UFOs for humans and technology for humans back in the 1950s. I think the Roswell case is in there, and every crash retrieval is in there. I think David Adair's rocketry going into Area 51 is in there. I think there are major secrets, Bob Lazar again, in that Pandora's box that we need to know about. Those are the dangerous topics, and I don't think that they want to touch on this. They want to keep it as vague and vanilla as possible. They want to be the guy driving the beige 4-door Volvo. Just boring.
Yeah, I mean, that way they stay in control. And there's a certain amount of tension between the executive branch and the legislative branch. And the legislative branch goes to great trouble to try to get the executive branch to provide information that the legislative branch wants. And the executive branch goes to quite a bit of trouble to stonewall and slow roll and perhaps not ever provide the information to Congress that Congress requests. This, not just UFOs, but other things as well. And there is a strain of thought, of thinking that is referred to as the unitary executive theory, that the executive branch should be sovereign. They shouldn't even have to answer to the legislative branch, to the other co-equal branches of government. And in my own studies, I have to say, Dave, that our executive branch is extremely powerful. I think that it's out of control. And we would be hard pressed to find out what is really in there. And something that I believe for a long time, considering not just the Pentagon, but the other intelligence agencies as well, particularly the CIA, that I feel that if we could go in there and make all the files, historical files public, not just UFOs, but if we could know the complete truth of what our country has done, that the US government would fall.
What about alien contact?
If that's the case, only a very few people know about it. That information is tightly held. Very tightly held. And even if it is more than 5 people, they're, these Harvard and elite university Henry Kissinger types, they're so reliable and so trustworthy that they can be read into this, and they can the executive branch can depend on them not to disclose anything or leak anything.
We have 4 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Tom Whitmore is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Tom, I want to shift gears here to your love and your passion, MJ12, Majestic 12. Give us a couple minutes spiel about what it is for people who may not be familiar.
The term MJ12 refers to the term Majestic 12. And it refers to a committee, an alleged committee of top government and scientific people that were assigned by Secretary of Defense Forrestal and President Truman in 1947 to study the Roswell crash and recovery, and possibly to manage the UFO problem. And the term came about mainly from two documents that arose during the 1980s that two UFO researchers, William Moore and Jamie Chandray, received. They received two documents on a roll of film that are referred to as the Eisenhower Briefing Document and the Truman-Forrestal Memorandum. The Truman-Forrestal Memorandum was allegedly an authorization by President Truman to Secretary Forrestal at that time in 1947 to proceed with the MJ12 project. And the Eisenhower Briefing Document was allegedly a briefing given to President-elect Eisenhower right before he took office about the Roswell recovery, about the MJ12 committee, and it also listed a number of other attachments. Now, the MJ12 documents, those two documents and other documents that are related to them, such as the Cutler-Twining Memorandum, have pretty much been shown to not be genuine or authentic. But what they did was they started a meme. They started an idea that has taken hold in the popular imagination. And William Moore, a prominent researcher during the 1980s, and Stanton Friedman, very, very well-known UFO advocate, had researched the Roswell incident in the late 70s, which resulted in a book by William Moore and co-author Charles Berlitz, known as the Roswell Incident. That book came out in 1980. Now, one theory about why the MJ12 documents came into the public domain could be that maybe Moore and Friedman got too close to the truth, because the Roswell incident, a lot of people take it for granted now, but the Roswell incident occurred in July of 1947, and the military people basically said there's nothing to see here, it's just a recovered weather balloon. And the press and most people forgot about it. And there was really no thinking or attention to the Roswell incident until 30 years later in the late 70s. So when the Roswell incident book came out, perhaps, and one theory could be that the MJ12 documents were brought into the public domain to divert UFO researcher attention and to discredit UFO researchers that had gotten too close to the truth, assuming that the Roswell incident was truly an extraterrestrial recovery.
That's very interesting. Tom, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk more of Majestic 12, MJ12 with Tom Whitmore. We're going to take some audience questions coming up as well in the next half hour. This is Spaced Out Radio. Are we on the precipice of history and UFOs? We'll see.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, Tom, we're clear.
Thank you, sir.
You're doing great tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your questions. Oh, boy. I try to put in 4 hours a day on this, 6 days a week. I just, a few days ago, I went out to Albuquerque and went out to Dave Marler's archive. And
I saw the pictures.
oh, you did?
I did.
I photographed a bunch of UFO magazines. The UFO magazine from the 80s and the 90s, Vicky Cooper and Don Ecker. And they had a lot of them. They had 46 issues there.
No kidding.
And I did a lot of photographing, and then I came home and I curated all the information.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You must be having so much fun with this, Tom.
Yeah, and but you know, the longer I work on this, Dave, I've spent a lot of time studying the 80s, the 1980s, and it's hard to find much more to this than that it all goes back to Bill Moore and Richard Doty. There's just not a lot more to it.
Right.
And that makes me wonder. I would prefer not to think that Bill Moore hoaxed the MJ12 documents himself. I don't think Richard Doty would have. I don't think he did at all. But there may have been other people involved, but it was so long ago that a lot of the people that could have been involved are deceased now, and you just can't get to them. And there are some people that won't, like Bill Moore today, won't cooperate. He won't discuss UFOs. He'll hang up on you, or he'll call the cops or sue you or something like that. And there's been a lot of information that he's never let out, that I think he knows a lot more than he's ever told, and he's never let the information out.
Does that include Holloman?
Holloman was Emenager, Robert Emenager and Alan Sandler, but I think Moore and Valet and Howe and all them may have been offered the Holloman film as well, and then they come up later and say, "Oh well, we decided not to release it." And it's kind of they put it out there and they jerk it back. Interview with a live alien that was going around in the 80s. That may have been offered to Bill Moore and Jamie Chanderay and Linda Howe and all this, and they never got to see it, if it existed. And one possibility is that some of these UFO recovery stories were planted. They may not be real. Even though I personally believe that there have been recovered UFOs.
Give me 2 seconds, Tom. Thank you tonight to Kitty Caddywhack, JSCO, T-Bone, Pam, Dutch Hank, Thunderhead, and Paramar for those great super chats. We greatly appreciate your love and support. And remember, I will be on the air at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 a.m. Eastern for the Disclosure Show this morning. I'm not going to get much sleep, but we got to get the news out there. So make sure you are there. All right? Or just listen to it after. Hit thumbs up because I know you're going to be tired. I know you're going to be tired. Here we go. We're into the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in as we get right to Tom Whitmore, Majestic 12. Tom gave us a little bit of a brief synopsis on the history of these documents, and he's been studying it for years, trying to figure out whether or not this project was true. Now, Tom, please remind our audience, when did you become familiar with this subject, and when was this subject accidentally released?
The MJ12 documents, as we know them today, of the Eisenhower briefing document and the Truman-Forrestal memo, were released in May of 1987. And also that summer, the so-called Cutler-Twining memorandum was released. Now, the first two documents, the Eisenhower briefing document and the Truman-Forrestal memo, were on a roll of 35 millimeter film that was either mailed to or left at Jamie Chandray's front door. The Cutler-Twining memorandum was found in the National Archives by Bill Moore and Jamie Chandray. And they had received information that a large volume of Air Force historical files had been declassified, and they went to the National Archives to go through those files to see if they could find anything interesting. Before that, they had been receiving postcards that had been dropping hints that at the time they didn't really catch on. But they found this memorandum, this Cutler-Twining memorandum, which was a memo that instructed General Twining about a change in a meeting with President Eisenhower involving the MJ12 Special Studies Project. They found that memo in a file box in the National Archives. Then looking back on these postcards that they had been receiving from an anonymous source, they found that certain hints on the postcards matched, for one thing, the box number and the file number and all this. So they felt that they were onto something, and that although those particular documents became public in the summer of 1987, there are a couple of other documents that mentioned MJ12. One is what I call the Carter briefing document, and that was supposedly a reconciliation or recapitulation of an alleged briefing given to President Carter when he was in office. Now, Bill Moore owned that material, and he had taken photos of it, and I have copies of those photos on my files. They're very good. But he only disclosed the first page or two of the Carter briefing document. And it was, at the time, it was referred to as the Aquarius document because it made reference to a Project Aquarius, but in there, it does mention MJ12. And then another document in the 1980s was what I call the Aquarius Telex. And the Aquarius telex was it was directed to Paul Benowitz. And without going into a lot of details about the contents of the telex and the reason behind it, that telex made a reference to MJ12. So that set of that cluster of documents started this whole idea of Majestic 12, MJ12, this top secret, ultra top secret committee of people that were all the information was being funneled to, all the UFO information was being funneled to, and that were controlling the UFO issue.
You mentioned some pretty heavy hitters in this. I mean, this involves the upper echelon of the military, presidents, vice presidents, Secretary of Defenses, before it became Secretary of War. I mean, there's a lot of influential people in this, Tom, and yet questions are usually like this, very, very secretive, and it's kept to a small core group of people.
Yeah, and the thing about the MJ12 documents is they may contain some correct information, or at least point at correct information. But the principle that enables this kind of thing to happen is plausible deniability. Because if the documents aren't genuine, and you take the documents, and Lee Graham and other people, sent these documents back to the government and said, can you confirm these? And they say they're bogus. So they have deniability. But at the same time, certain ideas, certain notions, certain concepts, and even certain facts may have been introduced into the public domain. And it's the stock and trade, part of the stock and trade of intelligence agencies to forge documents. I mean, that's what intelligence agencies do, because typically, during the Cold War, when the Soviet Union or maybe the Chinese or whomever an adversary is, for whatever reason, they'll flood the information channel with phony information. And that may have been part of the motivation for these MJ12 documents.
So do you think that maybe MJ12 could have the potentiality of being a LARP on the whole situation, and maybe to throw people off?
Yeah. I mean, there are all kinds of possible explanations for it. It could be, I think during the 80s and the 90s, that a lot of UFO believers wanted to believe that the MJ12 documents were an attempt to get the public started in thinking that the Roswell recovery was real, and that the government had a very covert interest in the UFO problem, that the UFO problem was truly real. That's one theory of why the documents came into the public domain. There was an outside possibility that maybe they were trying to fake out the Soviets. And we have to remember, a lot of people have come into the UFO community since 2017, and they tend to be the younger generation, and they probably, many of them may not be as aware as we are, Dave, and people my age. I'm 73 years old. But in the 1980s, we were still in the height of the Cold War. And there were all kinds of tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. So maybe the MJ12 documents at that time had some relationship with faking out the Soviets, or, something like that. Or it could have been to set up certain UFO researchers, set them up for failure and discredit them, or to divert the whole UFO community away from more conventional top secret projects. We had Star Wars going on. We had stealth going on. They were using lasers to blind Soviet satellites. They were reprogramming Soviet satellites out of their orbits. They were doing all kinds of things during the Cold War that, for some reason, and if Richard Doty is to be believed, that the government had an interest in monitoring the UFO community and manipulating the UFO community for whatever reasons they had.
Where was this allegedly taking place? Was it at the Pentagon? Was it at a secret base somewhere? Wright-Patterson Air Force Base?
I think that part of it was coming out of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And again, if Richard Doty is to be believed, he insists that the MJ12 documents were created by what he calls a special means committee at the Defense Intelligence Agency. AFOSI, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, was definitely involved, at least at headquarters and at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Kirtland was really a hotbed of all kinds of experimentation, of military technology. And there was a Paul Benowitz affair was going on at that time, and AFOSI was involved in that. So I know of those two particular nodes of activity in the 1980s in this whole affair.
The reasoning behind MJ12 that you could figure out, is it just about the hidden project? Is it about more than that? I've always had troubles trying to figure out what the benefit of it all was or is. Bail me out here a little bit.
Well, there are two. Another theory, another reason that I've heard is that certain people in the Defense Department, and I don't want to say which agency because I don't want to spoil my book, but certain person, very high level person, was dissatisfied with what the public was being told about or not being told about the UFO problem, and wanted to stimulate the scientific community to get involved in the UFO subject, because by then the scientific community had no interest in the UFO problem, and the few scientists that were, they had to do that behind the scenes, undercover, the so-called invisible college. So that's one explanation that's been given, and I've gone over these other reasons. Now, if Bill Moore has been correct in the assertions that he's made, and if Richard Doty is correct in the assertions that he's made, the UFO community was under surveillance during the 1980s. It probably always has been and probably is today, except today it's so much easier because everything's on social media, and you don't even have to identify yourself on Twitter or in social media. And so that it's very, very easy to monitor the UFO community. But back in the 1980s, for whatever reasons, UFO researchers and investigators were being monitored. Certain government agencies may have even been developing personality profiles of certain UFO researchers. Now, intelligence agencies do that. And the reason why they do that is because the strengths and the weaknesses of a person. And if you're going to approach a person or create a proposal or recruit somebody, you got to know who you're dealing with. So that to me is a very fascinating possibility in all this.
Tom, let's get to a few audience questions here. Let's start off with Jules. What are your thoughts on the missing or dead from the programs connected to the phenomena like JPL, NASA, Right Pat, and the timing of the release of information that's forthcoming?
I can't really get into this any more than to think that it's probably a coincidence. If we're going to think that someone was killed or kidnapped because of an impending disclosure of information, in order for me to take that position, there has to be evidence for it. And I don't know, I haven't studied this subject in any great detail. I'm aware of it superficially in discussion on Twitter and all this kind of thing. But any particular person, if they die or commit suicide or whatever, what evidence is there that there's a connection?
Or there's smoke, there's fire, Tom.
Maybe so. I'm not saying that there isn't, but it could just be coincidence.
All right, another question from our audience. This one coming from Frankie. In respect to the posts on X, what is your idea of the religious leaders being brought together and inform them to prepare their followers?
And another aspect of that could be, okay, when if this information comes out, what are we pastors going to say when our parishioners come to us and want answers? Okay, so in other words, hey guys, we need to brainstorm what we're going to say when this comes down. I think that's what that meeting may have been about. Because human nature is such that people want leadership. Life and the world is too complicated to figure out on your own. So if something weird happens, like a UFO disclosure, the people, the churchgoers, they're going to go straight to their pastor for answers. So the pastors need to figure out what they're going to say.
All right, let's get to another one here. Let's go to Bad Cop here. Tom, what's the compelling evidence that the MJ12 documents are part of a deception operation, and how has that impacted the UFO community?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's an excellent question. And you look at there's the old Roman principle, who benefits. But if you look at what happened to the UFO community after the MJ12 documents or the MJ12 controversy arose, UFO community has never been the same since then. It was like a hydrogen bomb was dropped on it. And after the MJ12 documents came out, the UFO community basically split into two factions. The believers that believed that MJ12 was real and that it pointed to a real event, and the skeptics and the debunkers who thought that the documents were phony, that Moore was a fraud, and so on and so forth. So the effect was the UFO community was in turmoil. And with the work that Leonard Stringfield had done and Bill Moore had done and other investigators had done in looking into Roswell and other alleged UFO recoveries, after the MJ12 documents came out, the UFO community was in turmoil. And that is one good argument that it was an effective deception operation.
Let's go to another question here. Let's go to Zachariah. Who do you think is in the MJ12 now, and what do you think they do now? Like, is there a current MJ12, Tom?
Yeah. I don't know if there's one particular committee. Now, there in the 50s and 60s, maybe 70s or 60s and 70s, there was a committee called, it had 12 in it, I forget the name, but they dealt with covert operations. And there were certain people, very high level people, very, very high level people that were on that committee. And I guess they decided what covert operations to engage in and what not to. And they could have been the same people that dealt with the UFO problem. 5412 committee is what I'm saying. And interestingly, it has the number 12 in it. But another aspect of government, and I haven't been in government, but one thing I noticed by studying this is that within the government, the management of the government bureaucracies, committees are continually being formed and dissolved, and new committees are formed and other committees are dissolved, partly in reaction to developing events and partly because the president wants certain people to be involved in certain things. So I think these committees can change over time. But one thing is for sure, I think that a person or persons right below the level of Secretary of Defense, Assistant Secretary or Deputy Secretary of this or that is involved. Probably somebody, one or more people on the National Security Council are involved, and people like that, top people in government. And I think they probably change over time. But I also think that very, very few people, if this is true, very, very few people know it all and know the whole picture. And everyone else is compartmented, and they know, some people may know more than others, and others may only know, certain things in order to do their job. And there's a great deal of compartmentation involved.
Let's get to another question, Tom. We got about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Attorney is asking, what do you think of the Forrestal death and the MJ12 connection?
My personal opinion is that Forrestal was not murdered. Secretary Forrestal, God bless him, was under tremendous strain during that time frame. And he wasn't the only one. I think Vannevar Bush made remarks about how much stress he had been under because in 1947, the National Security State was being constructed and the National Security Act was being passed, and the Defense Department was being reconfigured. The Air Force was coming into its own as a branch of the military. And there had been, and probably still is, but there had been fierce inter-service rivalry, between the Navy and the Army and the Air Force. And Secretary Forrestal was a workaholic, and he was in the middle of not only reconfiguring the Defense Department, but coping with this fierce inter-service rivalry. And I think the poor man, he just was under so much stress that he had to be hospitalized, and then perhaps, jumped out the window, or he started to jump out the window and maybe he tried to get back in, couldn't, fell off, something like that. But I don't think he was intentionally murdered because of UFOs.
Final question. I need a 15, 20-second answer from Brian. What are your thoughts on Bill Moore's farewell speech?
UFO people today, they see surveillance of the UFO community behind every tree, and it's because of Bill Moore's farewell speech. I don't think that even if he hadn't made that speech, even to this day, I don't think we would be aware that we're being surveilled.
Tom Whitmore, everybody. Thank you, Tom, on your UFO and MJ12 knowledge. We always appreciate you. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, Swamp Dweller, then the UFO Report.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Thank you, Tom. Always appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, Dave.
You take care and be well. We'll
Okay.
talk soon.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Stop now! You're under arrest! Hands up! Don't move!
Don't get caught without your Spaced Out Radio merchandise. We have t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, socks, hats, stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can look the part? We don't have ugly merch, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Dirty filth. Dirty filth. Dirty filth.
Object is heading north 045 degrees. It's definitely not a plane. It seems to be tethered to something. Is that a banner, Joe? Caribou Con. Does anyone know what Caribou Con is?
Caribou Con, one of the BC Caribou region's best-kept secrets. Until now. Join our panel of renowned paranormal experts for a weekend of fun and intriguing presentations. Go to cariboucon.com to book or inquire now.
Over here. Look at this.
Discover Spaced Out Radio on all your favorite platforms. We're live every single night with the best in UFOs, cryptids, paranormal, and the unexplained. And you can find us on all your favorite platforms. Head over to Instagram for behind the scenes and daily weirdness, TikTok for quick mind-bending clips, Facebook for community discussions, and X for real-time updates and hot takes. Wherever you scroll, Spaced Out Radio is there. So go search Spaced Out Radio on every platform, hit follow, and turn on notifications so you never miss a single episode. The weird is waiting. See you there.
The McNeil House is one of several buildings at the 108-mile heritage site
said to be haunted by spirits of a time long forgotten. But would you stay the night? Along with guided ghost tours and paranormal investigations, Haunted 108 is offering a chance to spend the entire night inside the historic McNeil House by booking one of our B&B style sleepovers, where you can experience the hauntings firsthand, meet the resident ghost cat, and witness unusual activity. If you dare to turn history into a night you'll never forget, book your spot now at haunted108.com. Spots are limited. Will you be brave enough?
And once again, I will be live at 5:30 this morning. That's in 6 hours and 30 minutes to see what the UFO files have to say at aliens.gov. If you want to join me, I will be live. Make sure you hit follow on YouTube. It will be podcasted out as well. So if you want to check it on out, please do. Thank you tonight to all of our super chatters: Brian, T-Bone, Dutch Hank, Thunderhead, Marv, Pam, JSCO, and Kitty. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you to everybody who has absolutely given us a thumbs up on this show tonight. It helps with the algorithms. Dr. Bob, how you doing? And let's bring in little Terry Hall, his gorgeous mustache. Look at that bad boy. Look at that mustache right there. Holy cow, that's beautiful.
Oh.
All right, we're coming back in 2 seconds. Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We got Swamp Dweller and Terry Hall filling in for the vacationing Grant Baker on the UFO Report. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is Xelophobia. Xelophobia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. Since I was about 16 years old, I've had several amazing encounters with deer. The first encounter happened when I was 16, attending summer camp in upstate New York as a JROTC cadet. A friend and I were descending a steep trail away from the group to refill our canteens. Suddenly, my friend pointed out a solitary fawn nibbling along the trail's grass. It kind of reminded me of Bambi. Once he pointed it out, it looked up and sprinted toward me. I crouched down and gathered a handful of grass. It nibbled the grass from my hand, then came within 4 inches of my face, sniffing around before quickly darting back into the woods. The second suspected encounter was at age 20, when I was hanging out in the woods of southern New Jersey with my brother. We had spent our childhood exploring these woods and became well acquainted with them. Yet on this occasion, we lingered longer than intended. We lost track of time and darkness quickly enveloped the area. An uneasy sensation crept in as we made our way along the trails. Confusion set in as we struggled to regain our bearings, heightening our concern. The woods grew silent and the wind began to whip around us. At that point, my brother and I knew that something was off and we had to get out of the woods as fast as possible. And that's when we saw numerous deer surrounding us. There were so many of them. We only noticed them when a handful moved out of their buck's way. The buck walked towards us. It was enormous. From what I could see, it was between a 10 and 12 point buck. I was nervous that the buck would charge us, perceiving us as a threat, but it walked right up to us, so close that I could have touched it if I really wanted to. It just looked at us for a minute, then turned around, walked about 10 feet down the trail, stopped, turned its head back at us, and, for some reason I do not know why, my brother and I just felt like it wanted us to follow. So we started walking with it. So there we were, walking with this giant buck between us. Meanwhile, the rest of us heard the herd walking just off the trail on each side. After about 15 minutes, we saw the entrance to the woods. We left the woods and turned to see the buck standing at the trail's edge. It just nodded, then turned around and headed back into the woods, with its herd following closely behind. Positively, it was the strangest but most remarkable encounter with wildlife, not just with deer or deer creatures, that I've ever had. My brother and I have rarely ever spoken about it, but we're confident that that buck and his herd protected and escorted us away from a potentially dangerous situation. The third encounter was one that happened a few days ago and reminded me of my previous experiences with these deer. I'm 28 now, so it's been quite a few years since our last encounter, and I live in Mississippi. I was walking my dog around midnight in my backyard, which borders this small forest. We were right by the edge of the woods when I heard an owl hooting. I shone my flashlight in the direction I heard the owl and saw 2 white deer just standing there. I thought, wow, I've never seen an all-white deer before, and I'm looking at 2 of them right now. What was also interesting was that my dog always reacts when he spots another animal. She'll whine, bark, or bolt toward it, but not this time. Instead, she was just staring at them, just like I was. After a good minute of staring, I returned to walking my dog, and the deer seemingly just vanished.
Thank you, Swampy, for another spooky story. I messed up on that one. I played that one last night as well. Usually I erase them, but you got it so nice, you got it twice. So thank you, Swampy. Let's head to Terry Hall.
Terry Hall's got a mustache, standing by the pole. Curled up like a question mark, got secrets to be told. When you post the Bigfoot tracks, ghosts that won't behave. He's going to the headlines like a classy way. We abuse of the week, yes, strange, yes, wild. This is how we have to the unexplained fall. With Terry Hall and Paul, this is stack in the sprawl. I'm spaced out radio. Let the very stars touch it all.
Terry Hall, thank you for filling in for vacationing Grant Baker tonight on the UFO Report. I know you got to get up early like I do. And you know what? It's going to be absolutely a great show because we got a lot of UFO news coming out. It just seems like it is imminent now, Terry, that the UFO files are going to come out. How do you feel about that?
Well, Dave, with it being imminent now, I think it's pertinent that we look into some of the more extraneous things that's going to affect as well. We reported back in January about maybe some of the banking issues. Anna Paulina Luna came out today, as well as on when she was on Joe Rogan's show, and said these may be interdimensional beings. Now, if that's the case, that means that our fundamental understanding of physics we don't have a very firm grasp on it. As well as, you've heard about the churches as well. So there's a lot of other things to look at besides just the fact that, and from what I know that's been reported so far as what's going to be released, I don't think we're going to get the 46 videos that the Department of War has been told to release. I think we may get 1 or 2, according to Representative Burchett, and some files, Dave. How do you feel about all of this? I mean, there's a lot to discuss this evening.
Well, let's get deep into it. Let's deep dive into it. I mean, that's what people listen to this show for. This is what we are going to provide. I think we're going to get a lot of files. Anna Paulina Luna has come out on X and said that the videos will be released on a second dumping of of information. So we should not expect any videos to come out in this first dump. In the second one, it should, but they seem to be very excited, especially Luna, who runs the Conspiracy Club in Washington, D.C. And I think that we're going to get a lot of files. I think there's going to be a lot of redacted names and emails and contacts. I think they are trying to figure out what they can and what they cannot do. I mean, this is going to be a very slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay. And I think the reason why, Terry, and the president said this as well, that, you know what, we're giving you what we can. I'm paraphrasing here. We're giving you what we can. It's all going to depend on what his professionals say about national security. And I don't know. I mean, unless the aliens are invading, I'm not sure what kind of national security is on this, unless it is the fact that we do have crash retrievals. We are in possession of alien bodies, and maybe even in possession of alien life forms. I don't think we're going to get that. I think the files that will be released will be very vanilla. You know, they will be very, very vague at times. A lot of it will be redacted. And I think that, you know, we're going to have to sift through this. But the one thing I trust about the UFO community on this, Terry, is from the time those files are released until the time we get a chance to study them over the next number of months, there are people who are going to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. There is not going to be anything hidden, you know, and they are going to attack this like they are starving and haven't eaten in weeks. And that's the way it's going to go. And I'm excited for that part because the UFO community gets to shine. And like I said during Tom Whitmore's time on the show with us a little bit earlier, if you missed it, whether you like the UFO community or not, and there is a lot of divide in this community, it's a very heated yet passionate community about this subject. I wish it was less political, but that's another conversation for another day. I don't think this subject gets out without the help of the UFO community. And here's why. The mainstream media, even after the 2017 New York Times article, didn't pick this up until it started hitting Congress, when the congressional hearings started. The UFO community used social media, especially the platform X, to absolutely hammer these politicians, both Democrats and Republicans in the United States, to the point where they had no choice but to look into it, Terry. They worked their butts off, tweeting, phone calls, emails to their offices. They did everything, and it caught the attention that there was something there. Yes, there was help behind the scenes from Chris Mellon, whether you like him or not, Lou Elizondo, whether you like him or not, David Grush, and others pushing towards transparency and disclosure. But the UFO citizen portion of this played a major, major role in this, whether it's shows like ours or whether it's shows on other YouTube channels or whether it is just by doing the daily work because you care about this subject. And when they said hit up a politician, you went and did that. What do you think, Terry?
I recently had a thought about why this has always been swept under the rug. And it went back to something that Ronald Reagan said about, you know, the line of how fast we would set aside our differences if something from off-world was attacking us, right? We would no longer be Russians or Americans or Republicans or Democrats. We would be Earthlings. I'm wondering if part of this disclosure is going to drive that thought. If this really does sweep worldwide, which it does affect worldwide, it happens everywhere. When we do find out that there are other beings out there. Are we finally going to be? Are we finally going to be Earthlings? Or are we still going to continue to be the divided races and beings and nations on this planet? I mean, that would be the primate. That would be a good reason for governments to sweep this under the rug. Not because the military wants to keep the technology or that it would break the petrochemical oil dollar or that the military industrial complex, that would be it. The military industrial complex wants to continue on with the status quo, with the way things are. But now that we know that we're not alone in the universe, are we still going to be Russians? Are we still going to be Americans? Or are we still going to be Chinese? Or now are we going to be Earthlings? I think that would be a fine thing for us just to be Earthlings.
That would be a good thing for once, don't you think?
I do.
But I also think too, Terry, you know, what are the implications going to be if this report of religious leaders being read in to prepare their congregations, if that is true, and there is some question of whether or not it's fully true or whether it was a little bit made up by a gentleman named Perry Stone, we have to wonder how people are going to react. More than 50% of this population, whether you believe in religion or not, more than 50% of this population do believe in some sort of deity or God.
Well, I'm going to avoid the theological implications as far as that goes for now, because we all know that we're only 3 square miles away from anarchy. And that means the dollar, your money. What's going to happen with our money? Now, we reported back in January, Dave, about a report that was fed to the Bank of England and how they must plan for the financial crisis triggered by aliens. Now, that was a report that was put together by Helen McCall, who served as a senior analyst in financial security at the United Kingdom Central Bank. And it was also co-written by Andrew Bailey. And they said that they had to prepare for a financial crash if something like this was ever disclosed. And so if the banks are preparing for a financial crash because of this, that has very heavy implications in our economy. I mean, if the banks crash, there's going to be an 80. It goes back to this report that stated that there was been an 80-year global cover-up of non-human intelligent life and a secret war among major nations to reverse engineer advanced and non-human technology. And it went not just to the banks of England, but it also went to several of the different war departments throughout England as well. They've had repeated instances of something operating in airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, as we well know. So UAP disclosure is likely to induce ontological shock and provide psychological responses with material consequences. There may be extreme price volatility in financial markets due to catastrophizing or euphoria, and a collapse in confidence if the market participants feed uncertainty into the price assets. So you're going to look at price spikes. And like you said, just the other night, Dave, we had a toilet paper shortage when there was no toilet paper shortage. So and then you're talking about theology as well. Well, I think this Sunday's sermon is going to be quite a bit different than anyone has ever experienced before in history.
Well, I mean, we could be on the precipice of history, Terry. You know, if they say do release Roswell, which I do not believe they are going to do, if they do release Roswell, That opens up the Pandora's box to every other crash retrieval and every other close encounter UFO incident out there. It opens up the door to what has been reverse engineered. It opens up to whether or not Eisenhower met with aliens and traded humans for technology. It opens up many, many doors that we may not be prepared for, Terry.
Now, you guys were talking about MJ12 earlier, and our good friend Grant. That's how I was introduced to Grant with the aviary. If you remember those discussions many, many years ago, and so that's going to open up a whole nother ball of wax as well.
It puts everything on the table.
Well, it does, and once again, it goes back to the thing of how much more control are they going to? I mean, is this are they going to use this, Dave, as a false flag kind of thing? Okay, now all of a sudden, okay, let's go back to the physics thing, okay? Because there's been, at least as far as I know, they have figured out that if we do have these dimensions, 7-dimensional 7D beings are hypothetical. Okay, of course they're hypothetical, but highly advanced entities existing beyond our 3D and 4D space-time. The thing about the 7D beings is, unlike fourth dimension, fifth dimension, 7-dimensional space is where our entire universe is a single unfolding point of string theory landscape. They've often described these crafts, Dave, as being able to manipulate and warp space and time. 7D beings would have that ability. They could travel and exist everywhere. Beings in a higher dimension, such as 7D, they could potentially inhabit all points of a 3D space simultaneously, appearing as a sentient cloud of particles. Now, you want to go back to theology, and God's supposed to be everywhere and be all-knowing and all-seeing. There's your answer.
It could very well be, and there could be some merit for that. Could be some extreme merit for that.
That a 7D being, as far as manipulating physical laws, a 7D entity could change the value of gravity or light speed in any given area, fundamentally altering reality. So that is what's so hard about all of this, Dave. It affects everything. Our fundamental understanding of where we're at, our fundamental understanding of physics, our fundamental understanding of theology, banking. Now we have to go back to us, to people, and aliens come out, the banks start having problems, all of a sudden we have a toilet paper shortage again.
We definitely don't want that. But it does open our eyes, Terry. So we got about 90 seconds to go here. Terry Hall in the UFO report tonight. It does open our eyes to what could be. And what could be is a lot of blandness, a lot of stale paperwork, a lot of redacted paperwork with black ink all over it, which many are predicting is going to happen. But the one thing that we do know is the files are out there. They're going to be officially out there.
With the release of the files, another fervent hope of mine is that it would be an open, more or less an open door policy for the quote unquote whistleblowers who have been so hesitant in coming forward due to the repercussions that they face when they do.
Yes. Yes. Now, the question is that I want to get into in the next half hour with you, Terry. Is disclosure or confirmation a good thing for humanity? Overall, we know the dark side of this. What's the bright side? We got to get into that discussion on the UFO report with Terry Hall filling in for a vacationing Grant Baker tonight on the UFO report. We're always glad to have Terry on the air because not only is he knowledgeable, He sounds good. His mustache looks great. You can see him on camera. And he's a good friend of SOR. We'll be right back.
This is Spaced Out Radio. Your host, Dave Scott.
All right, Terry, we're clear.
Well, I can tell you where you're going to be tomorrow morning. Right here. Right in my ear.
Oh, right in your ear. I thought you were giving me a blue pill. I'm like, I don't need the Viagra tomorrow morning.
No, right there in my ear while I'm sitting here doing my 9 to 5, or actually a lot earlier than that to a lot later than that. Or I'm going to be right. You're going to be right here. I don't know, Dave. I might very well just decide that I have the blue flu tomorrow and kind of pop out of the office early.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out a way how to get out of work tomorrow.
I mean, everybody at the office knows what I do.
I mean, I'm owed a day off.
You know? Well, you and me both. But everybody at the office knows what I do. I think that they ought to, as a courtesy, just say, Terry, you get today off. You go do your other thing.
Yeah. My boss isn't that friendly.
Well, you're in a much tighter work environment than I am. I'm just a cog in a big machine, man, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe when there should be some stuff in there from pilots and maybe a video but what I'm wondering is how much sand are they going to dump on their military as far as this goes, as far as military leadership in the top brass.
Well, we'll get to that here in about 3.5 minutes.
No, we're going to talk about the bright side of this. We're done with the government garbage. So let's talk about what this can do for us.
What is this going to do for little Terry Hall?
Mm-hmm.
And his beautiful dogs.
I always wondered what my dogs would do if a UFO landed in the backyard.
I know what they would do.
I mean, I've got a couple people who have taken pictures, have taken exposures of my backyard and put I've got a picture of a whole UFO base where the barn's at now, and the sport model sitting in the middle of the yard. It's
Nice.
really cool. AI is awesome, dude. You know one thing, Dave? We've all got a great big pocket of I told you so's tomorrow. All of us. The entire community, everyone in the audience has a great big pocket of I told you so's.
Isn't that the truth? I still don't believe it's happening. I'm struggling with that.
I know. And, coming up in this, reading books like, Catastrophic Disclosure, and Richard Dolan's view on how it would have occurred was so far off base, man. It was just it's just been a really slow build until somebody this all came from one audio clip from Obama.
Yeah.
One clip. And if Trump would have left that alone, if he wouldn't have said a word about it, I don't think we would be here right now.
I would agree with you on that.
I think that was the button. I think that was the thing that finally pushed the red button.
You could be very, very right on that, Terry.
Yeah. And boy, this next week I got coming up is going to be awesome. So guys, you're going to be needing to look on our webpage and start and wait for some new pictures from the McMenamin's UFO Festival this coming week.
Boondock, is it your birthday today? Please let us know.
Do we have a birthday today?
I'm wondering if we do.
No. Woo Riders, mustaches are off limits for aliens, man. Beards too. Mustaches and beards are sacrosanct. Aliens don't get to mess with those.
That was in April. Okay. All right. We're coming back in 5 seconds, everybody. Final half hour of tonight's show on the UFO Report with Terry Hall. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Let's get right to it, Terry. You know, we always talk about the negative side of UFO disclosure. What's it going to do to the economy? What's it going to do to religion? What's it going to do to people in general? I sometimes have a pretty hard time trying to find the positive side of this. What's your positives to all of this news?
I actually have 6 points of positivity for this, Dave. And I thought about this for quite a while. So I'll start off with number 1 and we'll run through them from 1 to 6, okay? Number 1, scientific and technological revolution. Number 1. Number 2, like we discussed earlier, a unification of humanity. Number 3, end of scientific / governmental stigma on the whole deal. Number 4, number 4, socio and psychological evolution, basically. Psychological evolution of the entire species, increased accountability for our government, and a better understanding of the cosmos. Right? That's 6 of them. So number 1, scientific and technological revolution, disclosing information on UAPs, UFOs, for us here at Spaced Out Radio, could allow scientists to study advanced non-human technology widespread, instead of it being so compartmentalized like Bob Lazar has stated and has stuck to his story that everything was so compartmentalized they could not make more advances because they didn't have the ability to even discuss what they were working on. Hopefully that'll come to an end, potentially leading to breakthroughs in energy production, propulsion, and materials sciences, Dave.
If they allow the public to see it.
If they allow the public to see it. Now we've talked about it before. It would be nice to have a 0-point energy device in my utility room powering everything. Imagine let's go back to Tesla Tech at Wardenclyffe Tower, where he was trying to power the world through the air for free. Can you imagine having a Tesla that you never had to plug in anywhere, ever? Because it was powered constantly all the time just by driving it? That would be a revolution. That would be a revolution. And never having to pay Uncle Sam, or never having to pay PG&E, not having to have these separate units for heating and air conditioning. I mean, so many different advances could come from this, Dave, if the government will turn loose the reins. We discussed the unification of humanity as well, but now what do you think as far as the scientific and technological side of this?
The only way it comes out is if they've had it for years, they've perfected it, and they're like already using it.
You
That's
don't think
the way
it's going to? I'm hoping it's going to open up the platform for more widespread study of the whole thing.
Look, we're ready for another advancement. Okay. You know, oil, gasoline, we're tired of it. We're all tired of paying these raising costs. You know, these oil and gas companies always seem to have an excuse to jack the profits. I was reading an article earlier today that one gas company, you know, had made a $7 billion profit in the last quarter. And look, I'm a capitalist, man. I'm a total capitalist. But when you're saying that we have to raise money for raise the price on gas for the reasoning of the war in Iran right now and the upheaval in the Middle East, and then you record because you have to publicly acknowledge your profit every quarter that you made $7 billion in profit. Great for your shareholders for screwing people.
Well,
and in a way, as much as I am a capitalist economically, I have troubles when I don't mind companies making profit, but $7 billion worth of profit while people are struggling to put food on their table, I have trouble with that. I really, really do. That could open up a whole different conversation. We're talking UFOs here right now, though. So shut up, Dave. Stop talking politics.
Well, no, we can get to the we can actually kind of bring politics into this just a little bit. If you remember, a very early movie is one of my favorite movies of all time, and as a matter of fact, Keanu Reeves made a remake of it, The Day the Earth Stood Still. There was a very poignant point made during that when the alien was discussing Earth with this scientist, right? And he told them, "Hey, we're here to claim the planet. You guys are done. You messed it up. You're done, right?" And the scientist said the only time that human beings ever really make great strides is where we're on the verge of utter destruction. That's when we make our greatest sacrifices. Well, I think that we're to the point now. We've been on a razor's edge on planet Earth all over the world for such a long time. I think we deserve the break, and we're to the point now to where I think we could do with that technological break. I think it can make a big difference in the world. I've got good hopes for this, Dave. If you can't tell, the increased transparency could reduce the stigma associated with researching unidentified phenomenon, and across the board, Dave. Even things that you do, right? If we can start to develop a methodology on how to communicate effectively with the other side, that if these interdimensional beings prove out to be true, then those things that you're experiencing at Flight 21 could be something that we've never even considered before. But now we may have the advances in technology to be able to understand that kind of thing.
Well, and that's what we need to find out, Terry. That's where we need to, keep that pressure going so that way we can get the answers to where this is going, because we don't even know yet if we are in a disclosure movement or if we are in a confirmation movement. I have always been in the notion that we are in a confirmation movement, that they will acknowledge that there is something out there that they just don't know what it is.
Okay, so if this is a confirmation movement, Dave, confirmation of an advanced non-human intelligence would profoundly impact human culture. I believe that it would. I think that it would challenge existing theological, philosophical, and scientific worldviews. It would allow us to adapt to a larger, more complex reality.
But would it be healthy for humanity? Because we are looking at a bigger picture here. Here's the other thing that we also have to note. Okay. And I'm going to tell our audience when this is released, be careful. Okay. Because nothing is always good as it seems. And it's usually not as good as it looks. Look at me in radio. I have a beautiful radio voice. The face, not for radio or not for television. Let me tell you that.
That's why they tell us that we have a great radio voice, Dave. It's just the industry's way of telling us that we can't be put on television.
That's exactly right. That's exactly the point that I'm making. Thank you for, proving my point because, well, I'm here every night.
Well, I hear it every day. So you've got a great voice for radio.
Yeah, I got a good face for radio too. Now I got to figure out what my point was. Oh my goodness.
We needed a giggle in the middle of all of that, though, Dave.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But like I always say to our audience, when something big comes down, I said this during the New York Times article. I said this during the congressional hearings. Don't get too excited. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. Okay. Use your critical thinking on what works, what doesn't. Critical thinking is going to be of the utmost importance right now when it comes to this subject because emotion is going to get in the way. You're either going to be really happy or really upset. And I know this from personal standpoints of view because I've been upset at times with what the congressional hearings didn't say rather than what they said. I'm trying to take my emotions out of it, do some critical thinking. Is this going to be the benefit of what we want with UFO disclosure or confirmation? Right? And I got to be honest, as you've heard over the years, I'm on more of the negative side of this. I don't mean to be. I'm not a negative person. But with this, with the lies and the years and decades of lies and deceit and cover-ups and everything in between, it's hard not to be. I mean, out of all subjects, I mean, if you go ask the average citizen in North America, whether you're in the United States or Canada or Puerto Rico or Mexico or one of the 12 countries in North America, and believe it or not, there are 12 countries in North America. I just learned this recently because I thought there were only 3. The attitude is we never trust the government, Terry. We never trust the government. And now the government, in one of humanity's biggest stories and potentially biggest future, is alien life and whether or not we are alone in the universe. And now all of a sudden the government wants to act all transparent and all 100%. Hey, citizens, we have your back. Look at us. After years of cover-up, we are bringing this to light. See how honest and transparent we are?
Well, that was Tom DeLonge's drive to get this out to begin with TTSA. It was to take the stigma out of the government, to make them not the bad guy. Right? And official disclosure, this has the promise of an end to 80 years, actually a little more than that, of government secrecy, which means that if we play it right, we can ensure that military and intelligence officials are held to a higher standard of accountability, right? Okay. As well as transparency. Well, Trump is saying he's the transparency president now. That's what he's saying now, is he's the transparency president. He's been transparent with the JFK files. He's been transparent with those other files that I'm going to fail to mention. And now it's the UFO files. So, I mean, we could let him spin it and go right round, baby, all the way around and around and around. We could keep doing this, or we could buckle down. And my whole point with doing the way that we researched UFOs and getting the RV and going out the hotspots and taking things off the shelf and making discoveries with it, so we didn't have to wait for the government. Now my next thing is I want to learn how to do the CE5 thing so I can talk to these guys. I don't want the government be saying what I'd like to say. I don't want them to be the end all be all who has the final word and everything with these guys. If psionics does work and we're able to openly communicate with these other world or interdimensional beings, I think that's the next step that we need to take. We all need to learn how to do that. I don't want the government speaking for me. Do you?
Not on this subject. I've never been a fan of it.
Oh, well, some fear the disclosure could lead to disruption, like Mr. Dave. I was playing the proponent that argued that truth is necessary for the betterment of society. I urge that humanity shouldn't be afraid of this. I'm hoping that it makes the next stride in where we need to be as a people. Not so much as a race, but as a people. We are earthlings. We're on this great big rock that's floating through this cosmos that we have the barest understanding of. Hopefully, this will change all that. I'm hoping it'll change all that, Dave.
How much do you think this is going to make an impact, Terry?
I think now we're going to have an influx of people that are just starting the journey into this subject. And we all know how difficult that can be. It's easy to lose that lens and keep an open mind, and it's so easy to be drawn in and focused in on one subject of this, and that's where the naysayers come in. Hey, if it's not this, then you're doing it wrong, and this guy said this, which means that guy is wrong, and we're going to have a gentle hand for the newbies. All of us that have been around this industry, and unfortunately, I can even call it an industry now, Dave, that's been around the subject, are going to have to usher these new people in. I don't know if anybody remembers what it was like finding Spaced Out Radio and finally having a place that I could come to and not feel like I had to wear a tinfoil hat, that I had people that I could discuss what I had seen and what had happened to me without being poo-pooed, without being made to feel ashamed. And then once I started this discovery of learning, I was one of those people. This guy is the real deal. And then all of a sudden I heard something else, and that's what opened me up to just keeping an open mind about the whole subject. So that's another point of this that we need to all consider, that we're going to have and I'm hoping that we're going to have an influx of people that get interested in the subject enough to make the kind of differences that I'm hoping for.
Our next show, we are going to be doing a panel to go over all of the files and everything that has come out since the files were released. And that will have Lorian Fenton on there. Josh Rutledge is going to be there. Grant Cameron is going to be there. So we have some very powerful names that are coming on. I'm going to try and lure one or two more on from the UFO world to get their perspective on everything. So I'm looking forward to getting the reaction from the community on this, because, you know, the old timers, the UFO people, the ufologists, not the UApologists that we've seen since 2017. Okay. But the ufologists in this field, they are very interested to see what goes on. I mean, for some of these people, they've been doing this for 50 years, Terry, 50 plus years.
Yeah.
They have been looking into this subject. So they are watching this with a very, very open eye to see where this goes, what's being covered up, what's being chatteled somewhere else. And it's going to be interesting to watch to see how this plays out. I don't even think the government knows how it's going to play out. And I'm not sure they realize that it's going to be bigger than what they think, Terry.
I don't think the government understands how deep the whole thing can go, because this isn't just knowledge of alien beings. This is knowledge of the extraordinary all together. And let's say that these guys are interdimensional beings who can manipulate space and time or reality itself. Are we finally going to discover that we are really in the Matrix?
Or are we going to find that the human soul does go on forever and reincarnation is real?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or like another friend of the show, a young lady, Jenny girl, holds a special place in my heart. Jenny is one of the ones who thinks that we choose to come to this this dimension, to this reality, because where we're at, we have lost something, and so we come back here in a journey of discovery. And so, I mean, Dave, it opens up so many things. Like I said, it's extraordinary, paranormal, para abnormal, Dave, para abnormal. So the para abnormal is going to get released tomorrow. And now, depending on what the media does with it, is it going to be one of those stories that is hot for the next 3 days and then all of a sudden it's gone again?
I don't know. I just can't wait to get my eyes on it just to see what truly comes out. I want to believe so bad. And I want to be wrong that this is confirmation and not disclosure. I want to be wrong about that. I want people to finally get their due, because for so many experiencers out there, Terry, they have given their mind, body, souls. They've lost family. They've lost friends. They've lost jobs. They've lost sleep over this topic.
So I'm going to flip the script on you, Dave.
We only got about 15 seconds.
I think you can do this. I want you to think about this for your 5:30 in the morning show. You asked me once what I think disclosure is. By tomorrow morning, I want to have an answer for that, Dave. What does Dave, after this happens, what does Dave think disclosure is?
I will tell you. Thank you, Terry Hall, for filling in for Grant Baker as we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Telgap, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X. Remember, this show is copyrighted Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Good job, Terry Hall. Thank you for staying up late.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Break a leg with Walt this evening, okay? And I will see everybody bright and early in the morning. Hope you all have a wonderful evening. But I tell you what, man, this is like waiting for the ketchup to come out of the bottle. It's like you're killing me, Smalls. The anticipation is killing me. McMenamins next week. Got the pass already. Woo, woo.
Yes, I will be up at 5:30 in the morning doing this show. So if you're up early or you're staying up all night or you're across the pond, I will be here for you. You can tell a friend. I'm not sure how awake I will be, but I promise you I will do my best. And we'll do the show tomorrow night with the panel. And so that'll be fun too. Thank you tonight to Kitty Caddywhack, T-Bone, Thunderhead, JSCO, Pam Harris, Dutch Hank, Paramarv, and Brian, new listener for the super chat as well. We greatly appreciate you. Hi, Blue Skies. How you doing? We're going to sign off out of here. We'll see you tomorrow night. Actually, we'll see you in a few hours, about 5.5 hours from now. We'll be back on the air looking at the disclosure files together. Let's do it.
Ciao, ciao. Right.
See you, Terry.
Stop now! You're under arrest!
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.